Ava was the kind of woman everyone noticed. Her thick, dark curls framed a face that seemed carved out of marble flawless skin, almond-shaped eyes that gleamed with hidden knowledge, and lips that could hint at a smile or a secret. She knew her effect on people, especially men. She knew how to use that effect, how to take their breath away, how to make them follow her gaze, how to keep them on a string just long enough before they'd fall. She didn't see herself as cruel though. For Ava, seduction was a game, an art form. It gave her control, something she felt she desperately needed. After all, love had always been a weakness in her life. Her parents had divorced when she was young, her father's infidelities destroying any notion of love's permanence. She had vowed then never to be vulnerable, never to give someone the power to hurt her. Seduction was her defense mechanism. She could have anyone she wanted, but she let no one have her. James wasn't like the others. He was handsome, yes tall, with chiseled features and an effortless style. But there was something else about him that caught her attention. Unlike the men who usually fell at her feet, James remained calm, distant even, as if he were studying her just as much as she was him. It intrigued her, stirred something inside her that she hadn't felt in a long time, the thrill of uncertainty. They met at a gallery opening. Ava, draped in a sleek black dress, had entered the room with her usual confidence. People turned their heads as she glided through the crowd, pretending not to notice, but knowing full well they couldn't look away. When she saw James standing by a painting, his focus fixed not on her, but on the art, she felt a tug of curiosity. Who was this man, so engrossed in something other than her? Interesting piece, isn't it? She said, sidling up to him. Her voice was low, almost a purr. James glanced at her, his eyes cool, unreadable. It is, he replied, his tone polite but detached. Though, I'm more interested in what it doesn't show. Ava blinked, caught off guard by his indifference. Most men would have seized the opportunity to compliment her or engage in flirtatious banter. Not James. He didn't fawn over her, didn't fall into the carefully laid trap of seduction she had mastered. Instead, he challenged her. The chase began. Over the next few weeks, Ava pursued him like she had never pursued anyone. She invited him to dinners, suggested late-night drinks, played her usual games with flirtation and mystery. She would drop hints of vulnerability, just enough to make him believe he was seeing the real Ava and then pull back, leaving him wanting more. But James played his own game. He never fully gave in, never showed his hand. The more he resisted, the more Ava found herself drawn to him. At first, it was exhilarating. She had never been in this position before, feeling like she was the one trying to win someone over. It was new, intoxicating. But then, something shifted. Ava started to notice changes in herself. She found herself checking her phone, waiting for his messages, getting frustrated when he didn't respond quickly. She started questioning herself, her worth, her attractiveness, things she had never doubted before. James's behavior became more erratic. Sometimes he was attentive and charming, drawing her in with deep conversations and moments of intimacy. Other times, he would vanish for days, leaving her in a state of anxious confusion. It was as if he had mastered her own tactics, playing hot and cold, keeping her on the edge, unsure of where she stood. The power dynamic had shifted, and Ava hated it. She had always been the one in control, the one dictating the terms of her relationships. Now, she was the one feeling vulnerable, desperate for his attention, willing to do anything to regain the upper hand. But every time she tried to pull back, James would do just enough to keep her hooked, feeding her just enough affection to keep her chasing. Her friends began to notice the changes. You're not yourself anymore, they warned her. This isn't you, Ava. He's messing with your head. But Ava was too far gone. She had fallen into the trap she had spent years perfecting for others. She convinced herself that she could win James back, that if she just played her cards right, she could regain control. She tried harder, dressing more provocatively, showing up unannounced at his apartment, sending late-night texts she regretted the next morning. Each rejection from him chipped away at her confidence, her sense of self. One night, after a particularly cold encounter with James, Ava broke down. Sitting alone in her apartment, mascara smudged from crying, she stared at herself in the mirror. Who had she become? The woman who once prided herself on being untouchable was now broken, desperate for the attention of a man who clearly didn't care for her the way she cared for him. She realized, with a gut-wrenching clarity, that James had never truly been interested in her, not as a person, but as a conquest. He had seen through her from the beginning, recognizing her seduction as the defense mechanism it was, and he had played her at her own game. The art of seduction, she now saw, was a double-edged sword. It gave the illusion of power, but in reality, it was a mask for insecurity, a way to avoid real emotional vulnerability. Ava had spent years mastering the game, only to become a victim of it. She had been so focused on controlling others that she had lost control of herself. Ava cut ties with James, realizing that continuing to chase him would only lead to further destruction.
The art of seduction is a subtle, dangerous dance. It promises allure and power, drawing us in with whispers of connection, yet often leads to manipulation, deceit, and brokenness. It can consume our integrity and twist love into something shallow and selfish. By playing on desires, it exploits vulnerabilities, turning relationships into battles of control rather than partnerships of trust. Seduction's danger lies not in its allure, but in how it teaches us to play with people's emotions as tools, damaging bonds and leaving scars on both the seducer and the seduced. True connection is built on respect, not manipulation.